Hey, part 3 of a 4-part series all about how to better self-coach based on your temperament. Today we're focusing on the phlegmatic. Didn't want to save the phlegmatics. We always save the phlegmatics for the end.
Yeah.
We're going to make the melancholics wait this time.
Which they would be totally okay with, too, because they're just so peaceful and things don't really bother them that much. So they would be okay with it, but we decided to bump them up and make the melancholics last, and then they can ruminate on that for a long time, all you melancholics. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, so if you are phlegmatic and you're using our journal, this is going to be really helpful. We're going to go through the 7 exercises of the journal and give better journal prompts based on your temperament for you to be able to get more out of your journaling experience. But if you're not phlegmatic, these are ways to ask better questions to your phlegmatic loved ones.
Yes.
Cool.
So
We'll see you
stick
in
around.
There. Bye.
Welcome back.
Hello, phlegmatics.
This one's for all my phlegmatics out there, all my Winnie the Poohs.
Because you're so special. Everything is good.
I love phlegmatics. I love all my phlegmatics. Also, I love it that I am secondary. That's my secondary.
She's a flip-flopper. She's very close choleric, phlegmatic.
Which is funny because they're very different.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway,
she can summon both forward, let me tell you. I've seen that red-hot choleric side before.
Yes.
And the phlegmatic, which is very peaceful. Anyways.
It's funny. Okay, I'm glad that you bring this up because I think my phlegmatic side comes out when it comes to relationships. Mm-hmm. And then my choleric comes out when it comes to the business. Yes.
That's good awareness, Erin.
Yes.
I can confirm that.
There it is. Okay.
So what are we doing? What's the adventure?
Well,
part 3.
This is a part 3 of a 4-part series where we're talking about better self-coaching questions to ask your temperament. And today we're going to be talking about phlegmatic. So far we have done sanguine and choleric, and then we are on the phlegmatic temperament today.
Yeah. So if you're using our journal, it's going to be following through the 7 exercises in the journal. These questions are journal prompts, right? To get you actually thinking and putting some of that stuff on paper, have a richer journaling experience, a more transformative, prayerful journaling experience. But also if you're not phlegmatic, some of these questions might land pretty well for you, or they're great questions that you can ask a phlegmatic loved one.
Yeah, and also I want to kind of give a little bit of a shout out to journaling itself. You guys can listen to this, obviously take this podcast however you want. But if you do want to apply this work to your life, it's really, really, really beneficial for you to write thoughts down. Questions are thought finders. We've always called them that. That's like they help us find thoughts. So when we ask a better question, we get a better answer. And so, these questions are specifically for the phlegmatic. But if you can, pause the podcast and write down your answer. Because thoughts
can be slippery.
I know. I hate that descriptor word because it just creates such a weird, icky picture in my mind. But they like slip through our hands really quickly. And so to write it down, you're capturing it. It's a form of capturing a thought, which is 2 Corinthians 10:5. Thank you.
Yes.
I finally got it. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. I didn't help at all.
I'm such a Protestant now.
But even I invite you all to also go check out 2 Corinthians 10:1-6. It's just there's context that it gives to taking all thoughts captive to obey Christ in there that is really like I see that really being lived out in a very practical way with our Metanoia Journal in particular.
Yeah. All right, let's do this.
That's a separate podcast. Let's do it. Better questions.
So the very first question that we ask in our journal when we do our 7 daily exercises is successes from yesterday. And this is Ignatian. This is kind of like, actually St. Ignatius suggests people do this first thing in the morning. Like, what are you grateful for from yesterday? And these are our first 2 questions, our first 2 exercises. We talk about successes from yesterday, and then we talk about gratitudes. Yep. So first, we want to know what success equals for a phlegmatic. Okay. So if we're going to customize a question for them, we want to know what motivates them and what is successful.
Yeah. What's the driving intention behind how they operate?
What does a phlegmatic want to rest in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Phlegmatic they want to rest in peace, harmony, ease, comfort, consistency, sincere communion with others, cohesion. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay.
It's all good.
So that is really what a phlegmatic wants.
Laziness.
It's,
Sorry. Judgment.
that is
Judging
a judgment. Choleric. Go back to your choleric side of
Living
things.
in my shadow.
Hush
My
your mouth.
shadow side.
Okay, so we take some of these words. This is how we construct the questions. We take the words and then we integrate them into the questions. The words, the success words, right? The motivating words. And really, guys, to understand what motivates you, maybe it's not all of those words, but ask yourself, what intrigues me? What would motivate me to actually get me into movement, to like get me moving? And what interests me, what excites me? That these are kind of some of the indicators of these particular words that might work for you individually.
Yeah, it's looking at the motivating words, right? So, or a motivating emotion. You don't operate out of sadness, like I mean,
You're not
to
very
like move
productive.
forward. You're not very productive. So we're looking from like a productive standpoint, because again, like this is paving the way for identifying that goal, that exercise 3, and it's all about the journal experience here is about moving forward, intentionally growing in virtue, intentionally growing in holiness, intentionally creating value for the kingdom of God, and participating in the body of Christ, which is
with God.
a movement. And if we don't have movement, we are moving, but unintentionally in the opposite direction. So we have to resist the devil, right? We're called to do that. But also it's the way that kind of what's happened when sin enters into the world. Everything is like inclined in the opposite direction of holiness. Like our will is inclined away from God, our emotions. And so part of the redemption is working against that, right? With the name of Jesus and grace in support.
A picture that comes to mind, and it's like a wagon or a bike, like you riding a bike up a hill. And if you stop, you don't just stop, you start to move backwards, right, on wheels. And so it's similar in that
Very
capacity.
much so. Yeah.
Okay, so we just talked about the phlegmatic success words or the motivating words. And then some constructed questions that it might be helpful for you to identify what your successes were from the day before, if you're a phlegmatic, might be, how did I sincerely connect with someone yesterday? What did I make simpler yesterday? Like, what did I actually do with ease yesterday? Where did I create harmony where there wasn't any yesterday? Lord, where did we create harmony together where there wasn't any yesterday? Lord, what did we make simpler yesterday? Lord, how did I sincerely connect with someone yesterday and you speak through that person to me?
Or where did I feel like a great connection with the Lord at that point?
Beautiful. Yes, because remember, phlegmatics, they are really, really, really motivated by connecting with people. They are people oriented, but they're an introvert.
It's an introverted temperament.
Yes.
Right. And so when that word sincere keeps coming up as well, sincere being that there's something that's authentic about it. All the impurities have been kind of pushed out or purified. And so when we're looking for a sincere connection, it's where the person is connecting the other person is actually connecting with you. You're allowing yourself to be seen by yourself and revealed to the other person. So we're not showing up with a mask on or trying to kind of chameleon our way to fit in with somebody else, but we're actually we're celebrating, in this case, a sincere communion, be celebrating actually being in a real relationship that's honest. And in the honesty, it's very fulfilling.
And one of the things that I love about phlegmatics, I was just thinking about this, is that they're really, really great listeners. And because they're a little bit more stoic, they don't really show it. Like, there's no judgment. Like, so you might just find yourself rattling off, if you're not phlegmatic, even if you are, But if you have somebody on the other end who's phlegmatic listening to you, you might just like share your whole life story, and they just and you're like feel really comfortable with that. So
They hold the space very well.
Yes.
Where did I hold the space well for somebody?
that's a good question too.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Not even phlegmatic here. I'm like 8%.
Yes. Well, keep adding some. That's great. Okay, so we have gratitudes.
Some rough edges to work out.
We're next. Gratitudes are next, and this is just where we say, Lord, I'm so grateful, I'm happy or thankful and grateful for blah. So one of the things that we've kind of had you guys do in this podcast series is consider your ideal conditions. These are just easy things to thank God for. These are things that, Lord, thank you so much for giving me an awesome house that I don't have to walk upstairs like a million times over, right? Because we have one level here. It's just an ideal condition for me as a phlegmatic who likes things that are easy.
Well, it makes like the things that make it easy for you to show up as your best self and really live in your gifts. You know, I think of even, there's certain plants have different kind of
caretaking responsibility.
Caretaking, but just environments that they thrive in. You think of a cactus versus a fir tree, a Christmas tree. Like they're going to have some different environmental conditions. And so when you have the right conditions in your life that just allow you to be, where you don't have to like try to morph to something else or really resist your environment to show up authentically, there's just a tranquility. There's a peace. There's an order that's there. And so that's where I find a lot of my gratitudes going, but just the phlegmatic. Again, when you are in a good, sincere relationship, when you're connecting, when there's honest communication, these things are perhaps going to bring a little bit more delight to you than they would, somebody of a choleric or a melancholic temperament.
Yeah. Yeah, so some ideal conditions that are common to the phlegmatic are a structured and balanced environment. Okay, so they like peace, they like order, they like which is like the tranquility of order. That's
Augustine.
Yes, Augustine. His definition of the word peace is the tranquility of order. So this actually goes into your actual environment. So having a structured and balanced environment, I think, is really helpful.
So I just conformed myself to my environment of a choleric that likes focus, because like an idiot, I had my phone right on the seat in front of me, and it was just buzzing, and so I just threw it across the room.
Did you see that?
There's such tranquility that comes with throwing my phone across the room. It was a light toss.
Another ideal condition for the phlegmatic is consistency, positive encouragement in taking small steps, no conflicts, or at least lacking conflicts.
There's a certain predictability.
Yeah.
That I think is the outcome where it's just like, okay, I know where this goes. I know how to be, just easy.
Yes.
Not changing.
Yep.
Consistent.
Yeah. Okay. So then you can like a couple examples of what you could be grateful for as a phlegmatic, only if these are true, right? Don't make it up if it's not true. Our Lord, I'm thankful for there being a steady flow of progress at work, right? It's not maybe this like huge impact, really quick, fast way, but it's just steady. It's steady and it's progressive and it's just kind of slowly progressing.
Yeah, Lord, I'm really thankful at that networking event that you put me in touch with that one person that I could really connect to in that sea of other people.
Awesome. Yeah. Lord, I'm grateful for having a sincere conversation with my husband yesterday, right? Where I felt like I could be honest and he also could be honest and I could receive him and hold space for him. Lord, I am...
Everybody's wondering what that conversation was now.
I know. So well, I don't even know what it was. I'm just making that up.
Okay.
But Lord,
I'm everyone.
I'm thankful for, but I am giving you a shout out here because my husband loves making processes and phlegmatics love following processes. Ooh. So Lord, I am so grateful for Matt creating an easy process for me to follow. Yeah.
I feel so seen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your hair looks great.
Thanks. I know. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's go. We have goal setting is the next one.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is one of my favorite, now has become one of my favorite exercises in our journal.
Wow.
So necessary.
And I always like to point out that there was at one point where you were like, Matt, I don't think we need exercise 3, this goal setting thing. It's just too much. And I was just like, it's actually what makes us coaches.
It's because everyone kept asking me this stupid question. What goal do you want to achieve? And I was like, do you even know who I am? Like, that is the most unmotivating question ever. Which brings us to what we're going to talk about right now.
Phlegmatics
Yes.
To move forward.
So the phlegmatics, they really like consistency. So it's hard to get them moving, right? Like, I don't want to say that that's a fact. I don't want to say that that's everybody across the board. But because they like predictability and consistency, it's like you're not going to motivate them by being like, hey, want to know what's new and like a new variety of something? They're like, no, thank you. And so really what you want to kind of tap into for the phlegmatic is conviction and even like kind of their why. Start asking questions about like, why are we doing this? Right.
The conviction that's there. And when you say consistency, they desire consistency. I tell you what, like, yeah, it could be kind of like having to push, a heavy stone, but once that stone is moving, it's got momentum to it. And so there can be the phlegmatics bring that as well. Once there's conviction, the consistency that they rest in is the new movement, right? That new direction that's there. So it may be like getting them off their butts, getting to actually work on the virtue. Yeah, but once they establish that virtue, they're going to hold true to it.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple questions that kind of, and I think these questions kind of apply for everyone too across the board, but a couple questions that I like for the phlegmatic, if I were to be coaching the phlegmatic, or you can ask yourself these questions as, what am I waiting for permission to accomplish? I love that one because that one really kind of, just like gets you at least starting to think, yeah, I feel like I might be waiting for permission to do certain things. And what are those things? And I'm going to actually make a blend of this question. If I don't know was not an optional response, like you can't say I don't know to this answer, what mission do you secretly wish God is calling you on? Or if you're asking yourself this, if I don't know isn't a response, what mission do I secretly wish God is calling me on?
I love that question too.
It's such an awesome question. We
used it the other day. We had a bunch of the AMU students over to our house for brunch. And this was like a very engaging question amongst even those that were not phlegmatic. It was just like the permission that was there.
Well, what was funny was the phlegmatic students who were really having a hard time kind of just even identifying what they desired. This question was like
unlocked.
It just unlocked the doors.
Like, oh, yeah. Oh, so the thing that I'm thinking about that I never share with anybody else, that's what you're asking about? I've got those. I know what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the question, if you had unlimited resources, like time, energy, talent. Talent and energy, I feel like might be like the biggest like obstacles for the phlegmatic in that way. Because I think they could be like really get inside their heads and be like, I'm not capable of doing this, or I don't have the talent, or I don't have enough talent for this.
Well, the talent and energy piece, I mean, again, we're going back, the phlegmatic is the most even-keeled temperament that of the four. And so they can be somewhat stoic. So they don't really have these really powerful emotions that can move you, that can really energize you. And there's certainly circumstances where that's really nice, right? And it was interesting. We found that a lot of, I don't know what the source was for this, but a lot of generals in the military were phlegmatic, right? You don't really want somebody that is going to fly off the heels and, be very explosive with their emotions. But you want somebody that can be even keeled in the midst of very difficult, challenging circumstances like combat. So,
I'll finish the question.
Go ahead.
So if I had unlimited resources, time, energy, talent, money, what would I do with my time and energy? I think that's, or what would I do with my talent? What would I work on progressing in?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because you were talking about the generals in the military, and I'm also thinking about some of the greatest saints were phlegmatic, like St. Thomas Aquinas.
He's a cool guy.
St. John Paul II. I think they did really well is they stepped back because of their lack of like emotionality, like those big bursts of emotion. They could step back and not react to things, but they could step back and kind of synthesize what's happening. They could like break it down and say like, okay, yeah, I see how you can think that. And what about also this?
Yeah. The ability to step back.
Yes. And hold space, really kind of hold space for the situation. Yeah. So those are some questions to get your thoughts about like, okay, what direction do I want to move in? It doesn't have to be a solid goal. And I think this was really helpful for me.
When you say solid goal, what do you mean?
It could be it could be a progression.
Okay. Got it.
It could be like a fluid goal, right? So like, I think for the phlegmatic at the end of this, my goal is for them to go, all right, it's in this direction.
Okay.
Right? Like, so it's over here. So as long as I kind of keep focusing over here, that conviction in me will start to build.
Okay. Yeah. That's good for me to know, because that is like, that's such a foreign concept to me, because it's like, no, gain clarity and move forward. But like, there's a very intentional, like, it's somewhere over here, but it's just like, I know at least with conviction, the next step that I'm taking, there's clarity there. I don't know. I'm reflecting as I'm saying that, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I kind of operate that way too. Like clarity with action.
Comes with action.
Okay.
Or clarity comes with just one step. Like it comes with at least one step forward towards something. So that's why a lot of these questions to find the goal were digging questions for the phlegmatic. It's like, we just want to know what direction you're moving in.
Yeah. What stimulates, what
stimulates movement?
Desire, even awakens desire in you. Cool. All right. Thought recon, exercise 4. What are the questions for this, Erin?
So the thought recon. So keep in mind, we put the thought recon right after the goal setting question in our journal for a reason. Because what happens is you set a goal and then you have all of the thoughts, right? And a lot of them are thought errors and thought obstacles, and they're like, I can't do it, and here are all the reasons why. And so it really sets you up for a really good thought recon. And thought recon is just you're getting all your thoughts out on paper.
So that you can bring them to reason, ultimately.
So that you can pick one and bring it to reason. So for this example, I'm going to take maybe a common phlegmatic, I'm going to take a goal that maybe a phlegmatic might be like excited about, or at least starting to get excited about. And then ask some questions on how to kind of keep you going through the thought recon. Because what can happen is people can start they write one obstacle and then they stop. And I'm like, no, you want to kind of get all of the thoughts out.
Yep.
So an example for a phlegmatic would be, for the goal setting question is, Lord, I desire to invest my time and money into learning more about my unique strengths. Okay, so that's the what. And then the why is the because. Because I do think that they would help me create more sincere and meaningful connections in my life. And I think I would regret not doing this. So we have a couple reasons why they're going towards it. It's not like this big, exciting blah, but it's like, Lord, I want to invest time and money into learning more about my unique strengths. Okay. So some constructed questions for the thought recon could be for them to identify some of these thought obstacles. Might be, what obstacles are in the way of me investing my time and money? So like, why am I not doing that? Why am I not doing this today? Right? And I like kind of bringing it into, because I think the phlegmatic can kind of push it off. And then there's always other people taking your attention from you because you love sincere, connection. And so like you can be like, with the kids and my spouse and, whoever, my best friends need me. But it's like, what obstacles are in the way of you investing this today?
Yeah. Another question that I think builds on what you just said of your spouse or your kids needing you, because the phlegmatic really desires to rest in that relationship is what relationships might get disrupted if I pursue this?
Ooh. So you think that's the underlying reason too?
Yeah, like there could be some sort of disruption to the relationships. And again, they desire to rest in harmony a lot. And even you see that cliff and strength is often common amongst the phlegmatics. Harmony wants to find that common ground and keep things,
Even.
harmonious and just. And so, yeah, if there's a perception that pursuing this goal may cause unrest or disharmony in certain relationships, let's bring that to the forefront, because that could be true, or it might not be true. It might be pursuing this goal actually may incline you to have more harmony, more sincere communion that you're looking for, right? I'm showing up more myself, even in this case. Like I'm living more in my areas of strength. I'm more uniquely myself. I'm actually capable of being that self-gift all the more because I have that self-possession now and that self-awareness.
I love that you just brought up the word sincere, because it's like they want to know other people sincerely, but so often because they want harmony, like the phlegmatics want harmony, is they don't show up sincerely. And so sincere connection needs to be on both ends.
Yep.
Great. Good question. Another question might be, what are all of my thoughts about taking this first step here? So like, why haven't I taken this first step yet? Am I hesitant to do this? If so, why? Are there any that you want to add?
Yeah, it's knowing that there's a desire to rest in comfort a lot of the time. It's what about this pursuit is uncomfortable to me, or where do I think discomfort might show up here, and at least identifying that. I think that could be across the board, but again, the choleric kind of, even if you listen to that episode, it's like where I said, where do I desire to be stretched, right? There's an acceptance of this discomfort as part of growth. And in some ways it calls the choleric forth. And I think that the phlegmatic is a little bit shyer about moving into the fire, moving into the discomfort. So knowing that that's kind of a shadow side that can show up with the phlegmatic, that acedia, that even that laziness that's there, or that revulsion from the arduous, the lack of fortitude. Let's name it. Let's name it for what it is so that we can approach it with fortitude.
Do you think people are wondering why we're asking, like, we're trying to find obstacles?
Maybe.
Do you want to explain that? Yeah.
Why we try to find obstacles? Well,
in the thought recon.
Okay, so I think a big part of this is it's recognizing that we're in the midst of spiritual battle. That's kind of like the first thing that comes to my head, and so oftentimes if we don't consider the obstacles, we can set ourselves up to be victimized when they show up, and all of a sudden we're just blaming and we don't know why we're not moving forward, and it's like the devil and blah blah, and we're not really taking responsibility. Where if you can identify these obstacles and bring them to the Lord ahead of time and expose them and allow him to speak his truth into these things, it actually makes you more offensive minded. Right. And you can actually start to speak this truth, live this truth before and rather than just getting ambushed by the lies when they show up, because the devil is going to try to frustrate, and the battlefield is the mind. And so the more that you can red cell this thing, as we'd call it in the military, we can kind of step into the mind of the enemy, so to speak, and be like, okay, what thoughts might the enemy try to do to frustrate me going forward? What has he done in the past that kind of plays against me? Where has he wounded me in the past, and how might he try to do that same thing again here? It's like, okay, if I can identify that ahead of time and kind of neutralize that ambush, it allows me to keep moving forward. So when it comes up, it's like, okay, I've already dealt with this before. All right, yeah, I know there's an inclination towards discomfort, but you know what? I've reasoned through this, and I found that if I stay put where I'm at, I'm going to be experiencing discomfort in a different way without the growth. So I'd rather have the discomfort and the growth at the same time. Okay, moving forward at that point.
So good. And that's why we call it a thought reconnaissance. It's short for, thought recon. It's short for thought reconnaissance, which is really like you're overseeing possible enemy territory, and you're seeing like, okay, is this person suspicious or whatever? But we're kind of looking at this list of thoughts and being like, which ones are the most suspicious in this way? So yeah, I just thought about that. I was like, wait a second. I think
again, it's in the
people
terms,
might
the recon.
think like, why are you digging for these things? And I'm like, because they're there. They exist. They're under the surface, and
they're traps. They're traps towards despair is really what they are. And I think of what
IEDs.
is it? 1 Peter 3:15. I think it is like, always be prepared to give a witness to the hope that exists in you. I'm butchering it. But again, I think what this work does, even if it's preventative work that we're doing, it's like, okay, by flipping the map around, looking at your situation, your pursuit through the eyes of the enemy that wants to frustrate you, wants to keep you fixed, doesn't want you growing in virtue. When you can see the truth, it just allows you to maintain that hopeful disposition, right?
Resilience.
And a resilience that's there too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Where are we at? All right. Now are we on 5?
Yes. Capture and reflect.
Yep.
So this is where kind of the reason portion of our journal. So up until now, it's just been like, what's in your head, right? What are your desires? What do you desire to move towards? What are you motivated by? And also what's in the way of that. Now we're kind of taking it to that next level of like, now we're actually practicing reason. We're practicing critical thinking. We're thinking about our thinking.
Yeah.
And so,
well, we're starting to look at still what are the actions here in exercise 5. So it's still a little bit of, so we're starting to move from the understanding into the judgment in exercise 5. And our recent cycle course that we have in our academy right now, the way that we have the academy set up is that this is right in the forefront. When you show up as a new member of the academy, you're in a beginner phase. This is the first thing you do. It lays the foundations for everything else. And so there's even certain workshops that aren't available in the first month. The reason why we want to funnel you towards that reason cycle lays the foundation, and we want to get you starting to actually practice this, taste and see the experience of what it's like living by this reason cycle, which is a way of thinking, feeling, and acting. I think you would say it like a way that moves you toward that moves you towards virtue. And applying those exercises in the journal. So you'll be able to see how everything we're explaining here goes word for word, and the reason cycle goes word for word and translates into the habit, the daily habit of the journal. By making it a habit, that's how it changes your life. And those are the people that in our academy that have had the greatest metanoia moments consistently again and again, the ones that are practicing that journal on a regular basis. And suddenly it's that way of thinking is not just when they're sitting down for 30 to 45 minutes doing their journal work. It's happening throughout the day when all of a sudden, they get in a traffic jam, or
it's habituated.
The kid, knocks all the food on the floor or whatever. It's just a way of kind of, it's been habituated at that point. That's what winning looks like.
Yes.
Continue though. Exercise.
All right. So we've captured, what we want to do is we want to look at that thought recon, pick one thought, not more than one, just one, and work on it. So I'll use an example of this thought. And a thought that maybe a phlegmatic may have is, I should choose and invest in a strengths coach by the end of the week. Now, you guys might look at that thought and be like, that seems like a useful thought. Yeah, like that would totally work for me. For a phlegmatic, I would argue it probably wouldn't work. And I have a couple indicators why. Number one, this is what I would call a pretty thought for a phlegmatic. But of course, I would always check in. If I were to be coaching them, I'd be like, how does that thought feel? Like, how do you actually feel when you think I should choose and invest in a strengths coach by the end of the week?
What is the emotion?
What is the emotion? And I imagine a phlegmatic would go rushed with a question mark at the end of it. Like, is that the right emotion? They may go,
is that the right answer?
I don't know, rushed, or they may start to feel overwhelmed. And I think there's a couple reasons why. There's the word should. I don't know. If you don't need to use the word should, I always recommend don't use it. I mean, there's some shoulds. There's some good shoulds. But like you should go to mass every week, right? Like you should go to confession. You should do these things. You should do these things that actually help you.
Yeah.
But this one is, it's kind of, it can be producing shame.
Yeah. It is an imposition on your freedom. Whenever you hear should, it's imposing something that you ought to be doing, right? And the reality is, like, it might not be true. Like, you maybe, like, if it was like, you should be praying the rosary every day. I know there's some people that say that. All right, but that's personal piety, and the church doesn't make that imposition onto people. And so, like, that could be something you can be like, yeah, well, the Blessed Mother in this vision said pray the rosary every day, so you should pray the rosary every single day. Okay. That may not necessarily incline the person to desire to pray the rosary every single day. And they may end up kind of focusing on the exterior than the interior, and there may be some resistance that's there because it's not really, like, even though we can see merits in it, it's not maybe honoring where the person's at right now.
And you can play with the words. So, like, in this case, it's like, it would be helpful for you to pray the rosary every day. And here's why. It would be helpful. And here are your benefits.
Or it may be helpful.
Or it may be helpful for you to pray the rosary every day. Or you could pray the rosary every day. That's another word you could kind of come in and substitute with that word should. But what we have found is should usually equals some type of shame. Like, it can kind of go right to that place of shaming yourself and guilting yourself. So that's not useful, especially for the phlegmatic. Not really useful. The word choose, phlegmatics, if I want to go back to this one sentence, I should choose and invest in a strengths coach by the end of the week. The word choose, they really struggle with decisions. Phlegmatics do. They'll be like, you tell me what to do. Or they'll be like, I just don't want to choose something because what if it's the wrong decision, but it's what if it's a more arduous decision? What if I create more work for myself? What if I actually disrupt consistency or peace? What if these other things happen? And that's really where they kind of come in, and I wouldn't use that word choose with them. I would probably use words like, what do you want to try? Or what could you kind of start to create permission to try out for you?
Yeah. So at this point in the capture and reflect, again, we're identifying what is the emotion, and then we're getting into, like, what are the, you're kind of speculating here and hypothetically coaching, like a straw man phlegmatic, so to speak, a caricature phlegmatic. So if the shoe fits, wear it. But if not, discern. But really, we want to see what the actions are that are showing up here, because you might find an action being procrastination at this point, or some sort of, like, slight rebellion of this, because and that's often something we see underlying with the should statements. It's like, yeah, says who? All right. Yeah, I'll show you. That's not necessarily the case. So we're looking at the actions, the inactions. What do you feel inclined to do? What do you feel inclined not to do, or focus on, or not focus on? Those are kind of the questions that we have in this exercise. Cool.
Yeah. Wait, do you want me to finish this sentence?
Yeah.
Why this sentence is an example of a pretty thought for a phlegmatic, but not really useful. Another thing is by the end of the week. So if there's any kind of rushing, like, on top of the kind of action of indecision, if there's a rush to it, there's just more pressure. Here's what's going to happen. If a phlegmatic, if you were a coach and you presented that thought to a phlegmatic, they will not do anything. That's my guess. I might be wrong about that, but that would be my guess.
Unless you said, I will be very disappointed in you.
And we won't be friends anymore. That would
still not good energy.
Destroy everything. Okay, so constructed questions for a phlegmatic would be like, what one word emotion does this thought generate for me? And what do I do from that emotion? And what do I avoid doing from that same emotion? So, like, in this case, we want to find the trajectory of that thought. And then some other questions could be, why do I want to try this? That's a digging question. That's kind of like, what is motivating you to even try this? Let's get back to that motivation. Let's get back to that root thing. And it's like, oh, because I want to connect to people. Oh, because I want to actually, I forget what their reasons were. There were a couple of reasons. I'm going to go back here.
Meaningful connections.
I might regret not doing this. I might actually be like sad that I don't do this.
And even the word try that you've gotten there.
Yes.
Is
the
like,
magic word.
It's a yes.
Yes. Why am I willing to experiment with this like that? Why am I willing to try this? Could be another thing. How could inviting this focus into my life create more sincerity, more harmony, more peace, more consistency? How could that actually start to increase these things in my life that I feel like I so strongly need to protect? Who would want me to stay in hesitancy, God or the enemy? Why would he choose this strategy? So like, do you think God is keeping you in hesitancy as a phlegmatic? Do you think that's from God? It's a good question for you to ask yourself. But if you answer, I think it might be the enemy, ask yourself why would he be choosing this strategy, particularly for you? What's he keeping you from? What is this victory and this triumph that he might be keeping you from? All right.
Love it.
That's
yeah.
it. Then we move on to metanoia.
All right. So we jump from 5 to 6 over here. Of course, we're always renouncing and repenting and forgiving in the name of Jesus, right? But here in exercise 7, right? Lord, what's your interpretation? This is a generic question that you find in our journal. But what is a question that may help a phlegmatic to get a little bit more about this exercise? If identified the trajectory of the thought, where it's going, where it's not leading to their desired outcome, how can we incline them to get a little bit more, or prompt them to get a little bit more out of this exercise?
I think a good question would be like, Lord, what do I have permission to try today? I like that one.
Why does permission show up so much?
I think there might be, guys, I'm totally speculating here, but just from my own phlegmatic side, I think there might be a thought that in order to maintain peace and harmony, there is a right way. There and like I need that permission to actually. It's almost like you're waiting for an authority to tell you it's okay.
Well, yeah, it's like you're so driven by the relationship being preserved.
Yeah.
That it's like when the other person says move forward, you know that you can move forward without there being any threat to the relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why I love this question, actually, because it's directed towards God. It's like, who is like the primary authority, right, in your life and in the world? And it's like, Lord, what do I have permission to try? There's that magic word, try, today. Like, what's one step I could take today? That's another great question.
Yeah. What is the lamp unto my feet?
Yes. Right here, right now.
Very present.
Lord, what little thing would create more peace in my life today? That's another. But I also kind of like any type of movement question. Like, Lord, exactly what we were just saying. Lord, what's the lamp unto my feet? What's one little step I could try today? I remember a spiritual director telling me that the Lord is not the lamp 100 feet down the road. He's the lamp unto your feet here today.
Very helpful for me.
And it's so helpful. I think that's helpful for everyone. But I think that's really helpful also for the phlegmatic, and that being like, you know, I think it helps you challenge the attachment to consistency a little bit more, you know, because it's like, oh, I just need to make this one decision today. So
something that you do really well for the team, and your phlegmatic does for the team, is, you know, you got the question here, what's a simpler process? Lord, what is a simpler process, simpler way forward? So much that we've actually adopted it as one of our core values in the company now. So if we've got a decision that we're making, we're holding it up to simplicity, and we're saying, okay, is this something that simplicity is simple, or is it overly complex? If it's overly complex, can we make it simpler, right? Or do we have to have so much friction? And I know my tendency is to accept the friction as part of it And so,
and almost create more.
Maybe not create more, but like indulge in it, like enjoy, because it's the arduous, the merit on the other
challenge.
side is so much greater when there's, because of the friction, the overcoming it, where it's just like, nah, like it actually, there could be a way of kind of leaning into that and say, can this be a simpler process? Again, this is where phlegmatics can really help the cholerics out quite a bit, because you can end up laboring all night and catching nothing. And even been reading Psalm 127 is speaking to me so much, recently of and I'm not going to remember it, but it has to do with, unless the Lord builds a house, the laborer, builds in vain. Unless the Lord guards the house, the watchmen guard the city in vain. But then also, like, just because you wake up early in the morning and you wake up in the evening and you have that anxious toil that's about you, God gives rest to his beloved. And that, I think that's something that could kind of speak to the choleric. Are you toiling? And then the phlegmatic coming in and being like, no, there's rest. God gives rest to his beloved.
Love it. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is like a superpower of a phlegmatic. I think a well-formed phlegmatic would be always asking that question: how can we make this simpler? How can we make this easier? Because they love ease. And so they actually do strategize in their mind. How do we make this easier and accomplish the same thing?
Or something better.
Yeah. And so I think even asking the Lord that question, Lord, how do we make this easier? Even if hesitancy comes up, Lord, how do I make hesitancy a little bit easier? Or why am I doing this? Yeah.
Cool. All right. Those are our 7 exercises, some better self-coaching questions for the phlegmatic. We got one more to do in the series. The melancholics saved you for the last here. That's my secondary. It's a strong secondary, I would say.
Yeah.
So hope this has been helpful for you. Again, if you want to get more into your temperaments, get our report.
Yes.
You can get it in our store, shop.metanoiacatholic.com. Used to just be in our academy. It's still in our academy. You get access to that with a membership to our Metanoia Catholic Academy. It's where we do a lot of the coaching work, but also there's the Reason Cycle course that's there. We thought about taking this out of the academy. We want to keep it in the academy because we don't want to separate it from the opportunity to get coached.
Yes.
All right, that's a very important aspect of what we do.
But back to the
how we help
temperaments
people grow.
report. Yes, you guys can get that in our
So that's our
shop.
Yeah.
And it's only $10.
Yeah.
And you get all 4. But also take our quiz. It's free.
Yeah.
You can take your quiz. You can
That's in the
find
show
out.
notes.
You can find out what percentage you are of all of the different temperaments. Yes. And then you will. Then we actually highly encourage you, go check out our report. Our report is really cool.
Yeah.
Matt and I actually coach one another in our temperaments, our primary and secondary, because we're like opposite. I'm sanguine phlegmatic. You are choleric melancholic. But I mean, that's just like one of the many things we have in the report. We have like journaling prompts. We have all sorts of like your natural virtues and vices, the things that you're inclined to, the thoughts that you're inclined to, the beliefs that you're inclined to with your particular temperament. So it's a very full, dense report. I don't say that to overwhelm you, but to excite you, to entice you. But go check that out. Yes.
Yeah.
And then
we
join
also
us in the academy.
Yeah. We also have certification that's right around the corner here as well. So March 17th, that's when we get our closed cart for our very first certification. Say our very first, we've had a couple of coaches that have gone through some programs that we kind of pieced together, and then we have certified coaches. We have 30 certified coaches right now. But our official kickoff, that was kind of more of a beta. Now we have our official kickoff that's coming later on, right after Easter. Closed cart for that is March 17th. So if you really desire to kind of come alongside somebody and perhaps bring the temperaments. Temperaments is a big part of the education that we have in our certification program. We'll teach you how to really apply these skills as a coach as well and consider temperaments. We even have some specific workshops that are temperaments related to help the coach guide somebody to name, claim, tame, and aim the strengths of their temperaments. It's a big part of what we do. This is a big part of self-awareness, which is where the journey always begins. But check out the Catholic Coaching Certification. You can see that on our website, catholiccoaching.com. We're going to be talking about that a lot more. But you can also go and download the brochure that we have. They're explaining everything you need to know about the certification.
Awesome.
Cool. All right.
See you guys around.
God bless. Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.